that you serve our country, and in particular, at times like this, people who are just so desperately in need of help, support, and just knowing that the resources are going to be expedited to them as they need it in their most vulnerable situation, when their families have been at risk, where their homes may have been destroyed, where they lack just basic essential needs. You all do that work around the clock as though these are your family members. I know how you work, and I know how hard you work. So I am here mostly to thank you all for all that you do, everyone who is here and everyone who's on the ground in the region at the moment. And I am here to also talk about where we are based on the briefings I have been receiving over the last couple of days. I have received regular briefings on the impact of Hurricane Helene, including from Administrator Criswell. And over the past 24 hours, I have spoken with Governor Kemp of Georgia, Governor Cooper of North Carolina, and many local officials. I have shared with them that we will do everything in our power to help communities respond and recover. And I've shared with them that I plan to be on the ground as soon as possible, but as soon as possible without disrupting any emergency response operations, because that must be the highest priority in the first order of business. The devastation from Hurricane Helene is immense. Millions of Americans are without power. Thousands of families have lost their homes. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed. Major roads have been blocked or damaged, leaving entire towns inaccessible at this very moment. Already, nearly 100 people have been confirmed dead, and hundreds more are missing. The destruction we have seen in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia is heartbreaking. In coordination with state and local officials, President Biden and I will continue to make sure that communities have the support and the resources that they need, not only to respond to this storm and its immediate aftermath, but also the resources they will need to recover. So far, more than 3,300 federal personnel are on the ground to assist with recovery efforts. They are deploying food, water, and generators. And we continue to work with teams on the ground to restore water and power as quickly as possible. To everyone who has been impacted by this storm, and to all of those of you who are rightly feeling overwhelmed by the destruction and the loss, our nation is with you. And President Biden and I and all of the folks behind me are with you. We will continue to do everything we can to help you recover and to help you rebuild, no matter how long it takes. And I do believe the true character of a nation is revealed in moments of hardship. Over the past few days, our nation has endured some of the worst destruction and devastation that we have seen in quite some time. And we have responded with our best, with the best folks who are on the ground and here doing the kind of work that is about rising to a moment of crisis, to do everything we can to lift up folks who deserve to be seen and heard. Communities have been coming together. People are checking in on their neighbors. Families are opening their doors to strangers in need. And as they always do, our first responders are working around the clock, putting their own lives at risk to keep our communities safe. Moments like this remind us we have so much more in common than what separates us. And the true measure of our leadership, each one of us, is based on lifting other folks up, knowing how we can make a difference. So I thank everyone for rising to this moment, and I thank you all here for the work that you each do. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
We've been watching Vice President Kamala Harris at FEMA headquarters. Watching along with us, MSNBC columnist and contributor Charlie Sykes is here. Also with us, the president of Media Matters for America, Angela Carasone, is back. And with me at the table, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Congresswoman, I start with you. This is the thing that you carry with you, the plight of your constituents. These are folks who are truly, truly hurting and suffering, and the vice president gave some voice to that today.
Yeah, I think it's really important that she does come out and explain that she is absolutely on top of it, because there may be those that expect her to kind of show up in these spaces. But if you've ever been anywhere that the president or the vice president is, you know how many local resources are drained because they have to keep them secure. And so I appreciate how thoughtful they're being about this, and making it clear that, yes, she will get there, but she doesn't want to disturb, because those emergency resources need to be used for the people on the ground. And the best thing that she can do is make sure that the money is going to flow as quickly and as effortlessly out of D.C. into those areas that are hardest hit.
And Charlie Sykes, even if it was her desire to be on the ground, what local officials are really pleading with, according to Politico Playbook, is that folks don't come. Quote, the people in my district really don't want to see politicians, said Republican Representative Chuck Edwards, whose mountainous western North Carolina district has been ravaged by flooding. Quote, they want to see water, food, cell towers, and power restored, and the ability to contact their loved ones. Photo ops are not what's needed. North Carolina's Democratic Governor Roy Cooper agreed. Quote, I told the president that we did not need elected officials that require a lot of security and attention, because we need to make sure that we're getting the work done on the ground. People are still trapped. It's not the right time for them to come. Charlie.
Well, somebody ought to send that memo to Donald Trump, because he is going to be there and he's going to try to exploit this. He's already making up stories about the administration not being accessible. Look, as you well know, Nicolle, events like this are a major test of presidential leadership, and they can be decisive. I'm listening and watching some of the Republican commentators saying this is going to be the Biden-Harris Katrina all over again. Well, not necessarily. I think that there's a little bit of projection going on there. I remember how the Obama administration handled Sandy back in 2012, and that was something that I think helped them. And I'm sorry to put this in political terms, but it's almost inevitable to do that. Look, they have to be as aggressive as possible. They have to be as visible as possible. And I understand that they don't want to be a distraction. But the reality is that presidential leadership requires presence. And at some point, they have to demonstrate that they are in charge and that they are, in fact, present to this national disaster. And I'm not saying that they need to be, doing the kind of, and I think the contrast with the Trumpian approach is going to be rather dramatic. He's going to be throwing fish sticks. He's going to be throwing paper towels. They have to be there substantively providing aid and making it clear exactly what the federal government is going to do to help Americans who are in need. This is one of those moments where Americans are going to look at the government and say, can you get the job done? Are you competent? Are you strong? And are you caring about it? And again, at some point, presence has to be part of that.
Charlie Sykes, no apologies ever needed on this show, and certainly not in my direction. And with 36 days until we determine whether the country remains a country that decides who leads it every 4 years in an election, no one should hold anything back. Since you raised politics, though, I will go there. Angelo, this is what Project 2025, the policy blueprint that would animate the Trump presidency, says about NOAA and all of the agencies that would protect people from catastrophic storms like this. I'll read from the Hill's reporting. Quote, Project 2025, a controversial plan that seeks to inform a future conservative administration, calls for the breakup of the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, NOAA. NOAA houses the National Weather Service. The plan, spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation, says that the Weather Service should fully commercialize its forecasting operations and focus on providing data to private companies. It also calls for a review of the work of the National Hurricane Center. It acknowledges that the center provides important public safety information, but also says its data should be presented neutrally rather than in a way that makes points about climate change. And on the point of climate change, I think Trump said over the weekend that climate change is good because there would be, quote, more oceanfront property. So that's the choice in 36 days.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two projects 2025 tie-ins. One is the one that you just read, which is that they want to get rid of NOAA or greatly reduce its output because it sort of reinforces the narrative about climate change too much. I mean, we see that play out. That's pretty standard right-wing fare. I mean, for the last few weeks, they've been hyping up, right-wing sort of influencers have been complaining that this hurricane is being overhyped as a design to prop up climate change. I mean, that is standard agenda and obviously has devastating consequences. The other tie-in that is really disturbing is that Russell Vought, who is writing the playbook, the 100-day agenda, the step-by-step process for the first 100 days of the administration, the implementation guide for Project 2025, when he was the OMB director, he made tweaks to the way that disaster relief was distributed that blocked the disaster relief from getting to Puerto Rico after that major hurricane, where it killed thousands of individuals. And other changes so that it was harder for disaster relief to get out there. So there's sort of two prongs here. One is to erode science and to undermine and attack anything that reinforces climate change. And that's the sort of the NOAA stuff that you were reading. And the other element is to use the sort of the levers of government power to make it harder for basic disaster relief to get to those most in need. And in their minds, it's usually Democrats or people that vote against them. So it's either going to be an instrument of revenge with a Project 2025 tie-in or a policy aspiration to reinforce the lie that climate change is a hoax.
Congresswoman, let me ask you to weigh in on both those points about the power of showing up as soon as it's feasible. You and we all understand why a protective detail drains resources. But if you're a desperate person hurting, someone with a pail or a rowboat or a bottle of water is a really welcome sight. How do you balance those things?
Yeah, I think it is really tough. And I think it is important that she explain why she's not there. I think it is also important that we point out one of the things that you mentioned about Project 2025 is always seemingly this us against them. Right. And I think when we heard from the vice president is that we heard someone that was willing to talk to whomever, because she understands that she is the vice president of the United States. She's talked to those Republican governors, and I'm sure she's talking to Republican House members, because it's not about politics. When you are sitting in the White House or anywhere near it, it should be about everyone in this country. And I think that's what she stands for, is this unity. It doesn't come down to, was this a state that supported me? Was this a state that was against me? And it also doesn't come down to photo ops. Obviously, there's a lot of information that we have to disseminate to make sure that people understand that she wants to do the things of substance. But if she can go out and say, in record time, we were able to get this to you or that to you, I think that that will be really powerful. And then also, I do think it is important that people see her, because when they're hurting, I think that they do want to feel as if the president or the vice president isn't so far away from them. And we know that when she shows up, it's all real.
Yeah, people
we've
respond to
seen her interacting versus Trump. You know, it's for show. It's never anything that is comforting that comes out of him. And I don't think that he will feel the connection, or that people will feel the connection to him. So I am hopeful that, you know, the resources will start flowing and that emergency crews can get to help people, get them relocated, start to find people that are missing. But I really don't want to distract from that, because we don't know if there are people that are missing and are still alive. And you may literally take law enforcement away from being able to find somebody, and they ultimately may perish.
Let me